Good evening. So let's start with a motivation. It's up to us to liberate ourselves from suffering, from dukkha. There's nobody who can walk for us the way to liberation. The Indian master Nagarjuna said that liberation depends on the effort of each individual, him or herself. We have to put effort into it ourselves and use the right methods to liberate us from dukkha, suffering. So this puts the responsibility on us. Here we are. It's Friday evening, January 1st or 2nd in Singapore, Germany, and so on. We could choose to do something else, like watching TV, going to a party, reading a novel, or talking endlessly about politics and such. But here we are at Sravasti Abbey. We choose to attend this retreat, or we choose even to be online to follow the reviews the Abbey nuns offer. So now it's up to us to think with what will be offered. But what prevents us actually from paying attention to the present moment to study the Dharma? It's our afflictions, our attachment, anger, jealousy, and so on. We enjoy being in a cinema, we enjoy watching TV, reading novels, even distracting ourselves with daydreaming. We enjoy nice clothing, good food. But actually, how does it bring us to liberation? So one of the most helpful meditations to release our afflictions, to come back to the present moment, is the meditation on death and impermanence. When, for example, when Moshe meditates on death, every day she's shared with us, her life becomes very peaceful. There are less afflictions, no depression at all. She said it's very vibrant because we can realize it is not worth as time is short. So therefore, let's review Venerable Shutran's teachings on the 9-point death meditation and imagining our death. So on December 24, Venerable Sutram kindly gave us a review already on the drawbacks of not meditating on the awareness of death and about the advantages on meditating on it. And she also shared with us about the 10 innermost jewels of the Kadampa masters. So now we will continue with the 9-point death meditation by Tsongkhapa and also imagining our death. Venerable Shutran gave those talks on November 4 and 13, if you want to look at your notes. So in Pabongka Rinpoche's book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, he quotes Longdo Lama Rinpoche, a practitioner who realized the reality of impermanence and who practiced virtue wholeheartedly. He said, "I am not afraid of being impermanent. I will be an old monk in the morning and get the body of a god that night." Having such confidence, such joy, even in dying, is a result of a lot of meditation practice. The meditation on death is not for the purpose to frighten us, to let us freak out, to make us paralyzed. No, not at all. It's designed to help us to overcome that kind of freaking out, that kind of response to death. But another kind of fear we are supposed to gain here from doing that meditation. What kind of fear? How does it look like? Alarm, what does it mean? Venerable didn't say alarm.
You want an explanation what the wisdom fear is?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fear of being reborn in the lower realm, so you do your practice now, so you get reborn into another rebirth, so you can continue along the path.
Right.
Or even being reborn in cyclic existence altogether.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A fear of having wasted the opportunity we have now.
Mm-hmm. Something else? It's included, so the fear of having created lots of negativities. Yeah. So that's what we want to avoid and have a sense of fear of. Venerable Shuchen taught, once we stopped the causes of lower rebirth and created the causes of upper rebirth, that's the wise person's practice. That's what we want to come out of this meditation with. The point isn't to develop fear of ordinary death, but to think of future lives and the suffering of the lower realms. So this is seeing what is going beyond death, and therefore using that to really emphasize to ourselves the importance of making our life meaningful by purification practices, by creating virtue, by listening to teachings, putting them into practice. So there are these mentioned 2 kinds of meditations from Tsongkhapa, very detailed instructions how to see our mind on the awareness of death, the 9-point death meditation and imagining our death. So we will go through the 9-point death meditation first. Those 9-point death meditations are there are 3 points or reasons, and under each point are 3 sub-points. And each main point, those 3, have a conclusion in the end, something we want to attain, to reach. So the first main point is thinking about the certainty of death. The second point is thinking about that the uncertainty of the time of death. And third is contemplating that at the time of death, everything but only the Dharma can help. Is that right English? At the time of death, everything but the Dharma is useless. That's, yeah. So under the first point of the death is certain, main point is that death is definite, that the Lord of death will come and no circumstance can turn him back. In other words, everybody who got born will die. Death is the result of birth. When we talk about the Lord of Death, and we said it's not a person, it's not a real being, it's a figure, and that has helped for centuries for human beings to work with the meditation on death. So life goes quickly, there's no way to stop it. And Venerable starts this teaching by bringing up to think about our parents, our grandparents. They had their whole life. They were born, they lived, all kinds of things happened during their life. Maybe they grew up in a certain place. They knew all about this place. And now they're gone. The place is still there, but changed too. Maybe the name is the same. But the place sees so many different lives too, so we can't hold on any of those lives. For my personal example, for example, my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, my father, all lived in Berlin, central of Berlin, Berlin Mitte. They lived in different time periods. So from the First World War till just 10 years ago. And my grandfather, for example, lived through the First and the Second World War. He experienced especially the time during the Second World War. And you can imagine, especially in Berlin Mitte, many Jewish people lived there, especially in the street where he lived. And so you can imagine the Jewish people, how they left the city when the Nazis came in, or the Nazis came and picked the Jewish people out and brought them to the concentration camps. So my grandfather saw all this, lived through that. During the war, actually my grandfather lost his eyesight through the results of extensive bombing in Berlin. So he ended up being blind and had to walk through the city with a cane to get his food supplies, to meet friends and such. So he lived his whole life there. He died actually in that street, what I remember. Then my mother, she lived there too, but after the Second World War, she lived in East Germany. So different people, different society. Mostly people lived there who had a more socialist belief or communist outlook on life. So the place was the same, different people, different kind of, community. Then after the wall fell down in 1989, so East and West Germany became one. Then my brother, sister lived there. I lived close by. Different people who live there now, who had a more liberal art view on life, who maybe have been Christian or are not a believer at all. So many different people, different communities, but nothing remains the same. Everything changes constantly. So just by talking about it, it was such a long time, Second World War, First World War, and then the war, 89, and then till today, 2016. So, but it's all gone. My grandfather died, my grandmother died, my mother, my father died. My siblings are still alive. So we can't hold on to any of those lives, when I will say it. And they're all, all those lives are gone, many of them, into the next existence. So it says in the Gomchen Lamrim, under the first point of the 9 points, when thoroughly trained in the notion of impermanence, there is no single external phenomena that does not demonstrate it. In other words, Venerable says, anything you're doing in your life, all you have to do is to look at anything. And if you think properly, it will remind you of impermanence and the impermanence of your own life too. So I found that pretty powerful, if you look at everything in that sense. So Venerable is encouraging us to really contemplate the fact that as soon there is birth, there is death. And there's no way to avoid it. Power, wealth do not save us from death. So it's really good to think about death of closed ones too. She encourages us, and as when you do so, you will not freak out about it. When they die, you will not become upset. It's not as shocking for you to hearing such news. If we practice thoroughly, it will become actually a part of ourselves. It will become, we will be aware of that death is certain and the time of death is uncertain. So another second part, the death is certain. The second point is our lifespan can't be extended and constantly diminishes. So death is definite. With each moment we are approaching death, and nothing can prevent us from dying. Tsongkhapa says in his great treatises of the stages of the path to awakening, Lamrim Shemro, when animals such as a sheep are led to slaughter, they move closer to death with every step they take. The water carried by the current of a strong river or the water in a waterfall on a steep mountain quickly disappears. Just as in these examples, your life is quickly spent and gone. Just as when herdsmen pick up their stick, their livestock helplessly follow them home, so sickness and aging lead you helplessly into the presence of the Lord of Death. In this way, meditate on the certainty of death from many perspectives. Then the third point under death is certain, that is we will die even if we had not the time while alive to practice the Dharma. So Tsongkhapa says further, even if you could live for the longest period explained above, it would be wrong to think that you have time. Much of your life has already been wasted. Half of what is left will be spent in sleep, and many of your waking hours will be wasted with other distractions. Further, as you fades, the time of aging arrives. Your physical and mental strengths deteriorate such that even if you want to practice religion, you lack the capacity to do so. Consequently, you have no more than a few chances to practice the teachings. Then he quotes the descent into the Bomb Sutra. Moreover, half of the 100-year lifespan is covered by sleep. 10 years are sheltered. 20 years are old age. Sorrow, lamentation, physical suffering, mental discomfort, and agitation take up time. Many hundreds of different physical illnesses also consume your time. So Venerable Shutren reminds us here how our mind actually works. She says, we like to prepare for everything else in our life, but with death we don't want to hurt. But death is definite. It will come whether we will practice the Dharma or not. So this mind that says we can practice later doesn't work here. We have always reason why we can't practice. She gives examples. For example, we are on traveling a lot around, like Venerable Shutren is traveling a lot. So she could have all kinds of excuses not to practice, right? She's very busy giving interviews, giving talks, morning and evening. All kinds of people want to socialize with her. Venerable Tsemke has good experiences in that now. She could have all kinds of excuses. She is tired, maybe she gets sick. No. Then maybe she comes home, she settles down, but then new projects are standing in front of her. There's a leak in Tara's refuge that has to be fixed, a new bill that has to be proved, or maybe some of us get a little bit crazy, so she has to talk us to get normal again. So in more a non-monastic lifestyle, we have a great single lifestyle. We enjoy all those social life things, like going into cinema and meeting friends here and there, having a nice lunch, evening dinner, and meeting again for talking about all those nice things like politics and so, and then after that nice single lifestyle, we meet somebody we want to get married with, and then we have a child, maybe 2, 3. We have hope to practice there. No, difficult. So the conclusion is death is definite. Since death is definite, we have to think I must practice the Dharma. Why must I practice the Dharma? Because the extent to which I have purified and accumulated merit and planted seeds of the teachings in my mind is going to influence how I die, and how my rebirth is going to be. Nothing else will. So we really have to practice the Dharma here. It's the only thing that helps at the time of death. Practicing the Dharma, what does it mean? What does practicing the Dharma mean? Can you be a little bit more in detail? What does transforming the mind mean?
Well, I don't remember what she said in this context, but overcoming our afflictions, cultivating our good qualities, principally.
Yeah. Okay, then the second major point from the 3 main points is the time of death is uncertain. Yeah. So the first subpoint under this is, in general, there is no certainty of our lifespan in our world, especially during this degenerate time. There's no guarantee that we will live long. We really don't know when it's going to happen. The Buddha said, some of the many people you see in the morning, you will not see in the evening. Some of the many people you see in the evening, you will not see in the morning. So we know that people die of all ages. There is no hierarchy who will die first according to age. So I think everybody here has made this experience, him or herself. The second subpoint is there are more chances of dying and less to remain alive. So it's true that we have to work very hard to stay alive. So even if we do nothing, we will not. That will bring us to death. So think about all those tiny things that can make us suffer and bring us death, like bacteria or viruses. Nagarjuna quotes in Precious Garland. Nagarjuna says in Precious Garland, the causes of death are many. Those of staying alive are few. These two become causes of death. Those always practice the teachings. The third subpoint is
Bodies are extremely fragile.
yeah. So it's easy to get injured, and also if we do nothing, we will die. We can starve to death. Even if we do everything to stay alive, we build proper housing, we clothe us well, we feed us well, still at one point we will die. Or Venerable asked us here, think about all those stupid things we did in life. And we never really had the chance to talk about that. I thought I open it up, maybe one or two want to share something.
Skydivers, any bungee jumpers, any motocross. There were times when I was in my 20s, I don't remember getting home at night. I went out and had a good time. I think I got in my car. It was snowy like it is here out in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. And I woke up in the next morning. I couldn't remember getting into my bed.
I remember, I can't remember the name of the river. It was a Stahican Stillacoom, one of those, Stillaguamish. They lived near the Stillaguamish River, and there was a big swimming hole with a big, high bridge that crossed it, and the teenage boys would jump off that into the water, and there was a big rock on the side. And I remember turning 30 and having the arrogance and also the fear of getting old that I would go out there and jump that bridge with those boys. And I did. But stupid? Stupid.
Yeah. So we made it.
Yeah.
So Tsongkhapa wrote in the Lamrim Shemo in volume 1 that the contemplation of the uncertainty of the time of death is the most important of the three main points. He says, this is the very thing that will redirect your mind, so work very hard on it. How do we do that?
We remember death every day, and then it really informs what we end up getting involved in and where we put our attention, where we put our energy.
Mm-hmm.
It shapes our priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Remember death in the morning, or we've wasted the morning, remember death in the afternoon, or we've wasted the afternoon, and remember death in the evening, or we've wasted the evening.
Yeah.
Pretty much constantly remember death.
Yeah.
Rejoice that we woke up.
Yeah.
We didn't die in our sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, to remember that, maybe we've all had experience of people that in our lives that seem to be okay and then all of a sudden dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and somebody
Mhm.
this uncertainty thing. We
Mhm.
just don't have any idea in this our time.
Mhm.
Sometimes something happens and we should have died and we don't. Other times, really not such a major thing and yet dead.
Mhm.
This uncertainty is the most confounding.
Reading obituaries is really a good way to
Mhm.
stay current with the thought.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, and Paponka Rinpoche, in the liberation of the palm of your hand, he says also, but there's no need for students to interrupt their studies or and to go off to some mountain cave. Yeah. Instead, you must convert what you are doing into Dharma. Suppose you only recite the words of text, you may have recited the verse, "Until enlightenment, I take refuge in Buddha Dharma and the Supreme Assembly, the Sangha," thousands of times. But check if you have properly thought over the verse even once. You will see that you have rarely done so. Good preparation for our winter retreat. Then the third main point of the 9-point death meditation is
Nothing helps you but the Dharma.
right. In Gomchen Lamrim it says, in brief, think, I will have to give up the good things of this life, and without doubt, they too will give me up. Consequently, I shall not get caught up with my body, loved ones, and wealth, but resolve to practice the Dharma. So the first sub-point of this is our wealth is of no help. So everything what we have gained in our life, money, can make good karma for us. And it can't purify all our negativities. Wealth can't create, can be even a hindrance on dying peacefully with a positive state of mind. For example, we think at the time of death, what do I do with all my money, with all my wealth, and we get worried about that. So it's really not the beneficial state of mind we want to have when we die, because that's attachment, maybe also of some anger, and then we can imagine where that will lead us to. So the second sub-point is also friends and relatives are of no help. As a time of death, we will separate from them. Venerable here speaks a little bit about why do we create so much negative karma in relationship to friends and relatives, and by being attached to them, or we retaliate against somebody who has harmed a person we cared a lot about. She said, the more we are attached to somebody, as more upset we get when we are not as close to them as we want. For me personally, that was a very very touching statement, actually, because much of my life I was driven by that one. I want to share that and confess it, maybe. So in the first years here, when I came to the Abbey, I had a lot of attachment to Venerable. So I wanted to be close to her and learn by being with her all the time. And I had a total misunderstanding, actually, of student-teacher's relationship. So my attachment was entangled in that. So I had to figure that out over the years. I had so much suffering, so much tumult in my own mind due to that. And definitely that wasn't a beneficial state of mind. And Venerable actually can't take out of me the attachment, the anger, the jealousy, whatever I have, the ignorance I have to practice myself to get rid of my afflictions. So the third point, sub-point of this meditation is?
Leave the body behind as well.
Yep. we put a lot of energy to keep this body alive. We pamper it, we clothe it nicely, right? We go to do exercises, gym. But the body dies as well. So the summary of this main point is to practice the Dharma and to do it now, and to do it purely without having the 8 worldly concerns involved in that. The only thing that helps us is to practice. That means to transform our mind. The meditation on depths helps us to steer our life in that direction, to make wise decision, what is valuable and what is not. In Gomchen Lamrim it says, "For these reasons, do not belittle this instruction and reach for other high teachings beyond your grasp. If you feel discouraged and think, even if I meditate, I will achieve nothing, make supplication and summon your courage." So that's another antidote to a funky mind. So Milarepa concludes, he said he had a disciple with the name of Nyama Pardabom. Nyama Pardabom, listen, lady of wealth, you who have faith. Have you enough supplies for the long road of future lives after this one? If you do not have enough, practice generosity. That will be your supply. Nyama Pardabom, have you enough companions to face the great terrors in future lives after this one? If you do not have enough, practice divine Dharma. That will be your companion. In other words, Paponga Rinpoche says, Dharma is your guide, your captain, and provisions for your journey when you die. So that was a short review on the 9-point death meditation. Do you have any comments to that so far? Okay, then Venerable Children continues on November 7 and 13 with the meditation on death. Yeah, if you want to look in your notes, November 13. She again encourages us to use our time wisely. Instead of holding on to afflictions, holding on crutches, how you say that? Holding on crutches. Being miserable with other people, grudges. Thank you. Being arrogant or holding on to all kinds of afflictions. Instead, to practice compassion, to cultivate wisdom that will benefit ourselves and others. So when we die, we will actually feel comfortable, we will be fearless and have no regret. And when we had a life worth, then we have had a life worth living with, we offered something meaningful to other sentient beings. So imagining our death. The traditional way of doing that is, for example, you imagine you're going to a doctor and the doctor gives you a terminal diagnosis. So here you can ask yourself, how do you feel about that? What do you want to do with the remaining time you have available? Venerable here at that point encourages us to really prepare for death. To do really practical steps first, like to make our directives, to think about what should be our healthcare attorney, what is our Dharma role, what kind of practice do we want to do at the end of our life, and what do we want to do or have done with our possessions, our body. I want to share here from Venerable Jigme's last BBC, I think she gave 1 month ago, what was very helpful for me to really have a practical example how to prepare for death. I will share only some main points. She First of all, she recalled the 5 powers. She used them as a guide. What are the 5 powers? Venerable talked about that in autumn 2015.
Power of aspiration.
Power of what?
Motivation.
Power of right motivation? Yes. Power of familiarity, prayers, distraction, white seed, and motivation. So a few days before her surgery, she looked at her advance directive to make sure that everything is still and so how she wanted it to have happened in case something went wrong. Then she also checked her will, which helped her to remind herself to be generous and wanting to give away what she has. And further, she said during the morning, so as usual, she woke up at 5 o'clock or earlier, and she attended our morning meditation here. She did the 35 Buddha practice. She tried to purify what is remaining and looked at her mind, the state of her mind, what's going on there. Is there anything she has regret with and was holding on to? And she reviewed also her precepts. She made prayers and to have a precious human life and not to be separated from her teachers. And she tried as much as possible to remember bodhicitta and her mind. Then she spoke with Venerable Shöni about her practices she wants to be done, if anything should happen. And through that process, she already felt great support. And then she faced a little bit of anxiety as closer the surgery came. And she committed herself to generate kindness, compassion, love towards each and every person she encountered in the hospital. And also she reminded herself that she's very much connected with each and every sentient being. And that those being has been her kind parents at one point. So during all that, these are some main points. She did some more practices. She in the end, she felt pretty calm and fearless. I also had a sense of what?
Jigme means fearless.
Yes, Jigme means fearless. I had a sense that you had even some joy. So the Dalai Lama actually points out in the book The Middle Way, Faith Grounded in Reason, the importance of in which direction we steer our mind when approaching death and, of course, in preparation during life. The state of our minds as we approach death is very important from the Buddhist perspective. You could say that your state of mind at the time of death steers the course of our next rebirth. If the activating factors are craving and grasping, these steer the karmic course in one direction. However, if the activating factor is compassion or altruism, that will steer us in another direction. There's a story from Kungtang Rinpoche's time at Tashikyo Monastery. An old monk on the verge of death clung to his life for such a long time that Kungtang Rinpoche came to see him to determine what was happening. What he discovered was that the monk was deeply attached to Tashikyo's monastery delicious butter tea. Kungtang Rinpoche reassured the elderly monk, "Don't worry. To Shita heaven, the butter tea is even better." As a result, the monk was apparently able to let go and pass away peacefully. So the Dalai Lama says that the question here is which karmic factor was activated at the time of his death, his attachment to tea or his wish to be born into Shita. Even ordinary people like us, he says, whose minds are dominated by delusions and ignorance, can propel rebirth through the force of mental states like compassion and altruistic aspiration. It's vital, especially for practicing Buddhists, to make our state of mind at the time of death virtuous. It's important for the dying individual and for the people around the dying person. It's also important to create an atmosphere that will encourage the dying person to develop a virtuous state of mind. So then, since we have a bit more time, Venerable also went into the reflection on the way future lives will be, the joys and suffering of the two kinds of rebirth. In Gomchen Lamrim, it says, "Thus you will soon die, you have no time to stay. When this occurs, you will not cease to exist, but according to your karma, will be propelled towards and born into one of two kinds of rebirth. If you fall into the lower rebirth, the torments will be numerous and unbearable." Another reflection is to contemplate the suffering of the hell beings, may it be in the heat or cold hell realm, of the hungry spirits, hungry ghosts, and of animals. So Venerable also says here we can think about insects who are dying and get reborn after even shorter periods of time. And Gomchen says further, if you cannot bear just the prick of a thorn, ask yourself what will happen when you face the lower realms torments. So if we, Venerable addressed us here directly, if we complain about all those things in life, she says, that we should compare it with the suffering in the lower realm. If we really think about this, we stop to complain because we will realize that things we complain about are quite tiny compared to what could happen in a lower realm. It's good teaching. The purpose of meditating of the being in the lower, being born in the lower rebirth, is not to make us panic again, to make us freaked out, but to think about the future. How the future could be while we have the opportunity now avoid creating the cause to have such kind of future. We actually use this opportunity. If we don't think about the next life or a possibility of having a horrible rebirth, then we just take our life for granted. We just go on creating all kinds of negativities without contemplating of how it will ripen in our next life, and then it becomes a total disaster. So the purpose of that meditation again is not to freak us out. So if we don't think about next life having a horrible rebirth, we waste this life and create a lot of negative karma. And then Venerable did something very interesting, what I didn't plan to go into very much detail, but wanted to mention that, and also it's very useful to take it into meditation. She gave a short commentary on chapter 2 of the Bodhicayavatara, Shantideva's Bodhicayavatara, and she commented it because it actually entails the 9-point death meditation and also the practices we are doing with it beforehand or accompanying this practice. So Shantideva is talking about the prostration practice, purification, about refuge, and then from there it goes over to thinking about karma we have created and the rebirth we could have, and in fact that we are going to die. So Shantideva says it straightforward. And he says this in that way because he wants us to motivate us to generate bodhicitta. And of course, to refrain from all sorts of negativities. And especially first 26 up to 65, including those kinds of meditations. So different topics are included here. First of all, we have this life, recognizing this. Then we are recognizing that we are overwhelmed by the 8 worldly concerns. Realizing that we are going to die. And at the time of death, our karma is going to ripen. And yet, we are not paying enough attention what karma we are creating during this life, because we are running around driven by the 8 worldly concerns. We just follow what impulse entered our mind. Then she, Venerable, also says, in the name of helping our friends, relatives, we create a lot of negative karma. In the name of preventing our enemies from harming us, we also create a lot of negative karma. And all those people we are separating from when we are dying, we will all also separate from those people when we are dying. So the karma we have created, actually we have to experience. So there's nobody to make responsible for, just ourselves. And then also the compassionate Buddhas can't help us. They can't take our karma from us. So they can teach us, and they have taught us. But we don't do what they have taught us. We postpone it. Venerable taught us. We think our action have not been so bad. So we did not purify. We didn't stop creating negative karma. And at the time of death, we then can't go back and do it differently. So Shantideva here is actually teaching us out of compassion, and is encouraging us that we can take steps now to live a meaningful life. Therefore, we should listen to his advice. We should listen to the advice of it's good to listen to the advice of other wise teachers like Venerable, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that was my preparation for tonight. If you have any further questions, points for discussion, so there's space right now.
I was just going to say, when I hear these teachings again and again, I can feel how my mind kind of starts to drop. It's like, and you get kind of a little antsy, it's like a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start remembering all the things that we can do, and like this weekend, everybody's doing the Vajrasattva practice, and so there, right there is such a wonderful practice to start purifying those actions that we've done in this life and previous lives. And I remind myself of those kind of things and get a very broad mind when I think about death, so that it doesn't just kind of freak me out and
Mm-hmm.
gosh, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, to see all of the things that we can apply so that we can go forward with some confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That, no matter what we have done, we can transform it. No matter what we have done, we can transform it. And then that kind of helps, at least for me, then to inform, okay, so I can purify past things, but also then what is my motivation today, and how am I going to go forward this day? So that I kind of work on both ends then and feel like I have something to kind of inform how I go in the next moments, since I don't know how many moments I'm going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just, I guess what I'm saying is that just kind of a way that I try to rebalance my mind so that I don't fall into either despair or anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
but accept, and then, well, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I have kind of a similar experience. I was thinking how, I guess when we went to Kentucky, we had these crazy flights where, actually, for a while I was thinking I might die. It was, one of those flights. And so what was interesting was that sometimes I'm just surprised that the train, we're so well trained. I was like, well, if this is what's going to happen here, then I'm going to get really calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started doing my practices and just let what's going to happen. Turbulence and the winds here and all that was going on, And so on that side, it gives me some confidence. And then the other side, when I hear this, I don't think before I had much sense of craving and grasping. I think it was like the words on the page, that can come up at the time of death, and I could crave and grasp, but it was like words on a page, and only, in the last year or two has it kind of like really struck me in my own experience of, oh, this is the mind of craving and grasping, and if I die with this mind. So in that sense, even though, I guess I feel kind of encouraged in that, being able to identify states of mind more clearly from watching and learning. And so I don't freak myself out, but I feel like a lot of appreciation for the teachings, and I appreciate this with you particularly for doing very wonderful to listen to and to contemplate while you're talking.
Someone online says, I agree with them with Jigme. It's a great time to start thinking of our own impermanence.
Yeah.
I appreciated that His Holiness's quote that said even ordinary beings have a different kind of mind at the time of death, and that's reassuring.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't have personal really, I had, when my appendix was strongly infected, and I had to go to the hospital. My mental state in the beginning was very, I say, maybe surprised that something like that could happen. I really didn't expect that. And then when the surgery came, and the only thing what I extensively did at that time was taking a giving meditation. And I had never such intense meditation, I would say. There was nothing I have to give up. It was just, I wanted to give everything I have, even my last breath, to all those I'm surrounded right now, at least those. And it brought so much joy. So, then remembering such experiences and to bring them into your life, because that's actually what counts, to make your life meaningful and not to cling to this body, to cling to your emotions and your possessions and all those things, what people think about us and such, instead of using your breath in a meaningful way. And yeah.
I find this topic good for every day, too, just thinking about how the little things in this life we get upset about aren't going to matter at all in the next life. I can not wake up here tomorrow morning and be dead, and wherever I go, it's not going to matter whether I had snow in my boots today, or if I spilled my tea or something. It's not going to matter. What matters is going to be the state of my mind and how I reacted to those things.
Yeah.
That I might get upset about, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm.
Also a very good practice when something is surprising or, you know, that we're not expecting, that in that moment we try to work with our mind to stay very even and calm. To me, that's kind of a practice of preparing myself for death, because that also is going to be something unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And so any time that something is, you know, kind of takes you off guard, to really work with the mind in that moment to stay even and manage your emotions really is a very helpful practice, I think.
Mm.
Because anything that we acclimate to, then that is what's going to arise at the time of death. So we have time to practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Someone online is writing, when I observe the world or read the news, I can see so clearly the kinds of actions we can do of an ignorant fear of death, particularly with the current fear of terrorism. I have found that this helps me identify things to purify, reinforces my determination to move forward in my life with increased wisdom, and helps to generate compassion for others too. And then someone else has written in, worrying about my body in this life will not matter at all in the next life. So true.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Dan.
So I'm wondering why it doesn't address, so I get that the time of death is uncertain, but I'm thinking about the manner of death too, because, so like it's all well and good that if you're on an airplane and you have some inkling that you might die, and you actually have some time to practice.
Yeah.
What if, I'm thinking of my friend Bo, who was killed in a motorcycle accident, and he was in Hawaii, and he was going at a pretty high rate of speed. Somebody, I mean, unfortunately for him that he was going fast, but somebody pulled in front of him at the very last second, left turn, and I'm sure it was over in a very fast way. So, in that situation, I was in that situation, I ride a motorcycle. My last reaction might be, oh shit, or something. Which I hope it isn't, right? But I mean, that's probably what it's going to be. You know, I mean, I don't know. But how do you? So even if you are a life, like even if you're really practicing hard to prepare for the time of death, there's no certainty of the manner of death either. So,
Yeah, for example, I mean, Jigme can share her example with the accident she had, but for me it means that I have to practice every moment. So like if I'm in a car or on a motorcycle, so how I think right now will determine in the moment when a car crashes me. Yeah, I can think, for example, about the kindness of others during I'm driving, right? I'm able to drive a car to be able to go to the, to the workplace where I'm going, or I can be thankful to all those mother sentient beings around me that they keep us alive while I'm going to work, and selling food or producing food or clothes or whatever, just the presence and of the kindness all around. So, and that's, a more a rough explanation. Yeah.
What you're saying, to me, I think that the state of mind we carry around is the condition for when that event happens. Because I've had things happen kind of quickly where sometimes it's like, oh shit, but other times it's like, wow, look at that. I've had those experiences too, like bashed my head into things. I remember one time I hit my lip. I walked right into a wall in my house and I, split my lip and I was like, wow, look at that. So it was a very clear moment, and I faded, same thing, very clear moment. Sometimes these things are surprising, and so I have the notion that working on what my mind is like throughout the day will give me more chance of having some kind of wherewithal of how I'm riding that motorcycle. You know what I mean? That's where we have some control.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helps me a lot, because if I watch myself around here, and if I'm in a grumpy mood, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm going, rah, and so, you know, if you're riding a motorcycle in that kind of mood, well, you can be pretty sure what you're gonna say when it happens, but that's how, so you use your daily life.
And I don't think that we can underestimate how hard it is to familiarize a mind that's been under the control of afflictions and karma since beginningless time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I live in an environment that is so conducive to virtue. And if I can remember a virtuous thought once every 3 or 4 hours, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
So I don't think that when we say, you know, how much we would have to familiarize and habituate our mind in virtue, just like Venerable John with the kindness as her appendix is bursting. The discipline, the effort, the reconfiguring of lifetimes of just habituating, it's a full-time job. And even in the best circumstances, the mind is so obscured. You know, I'm just sometimes absolutely appalled of having the kind of life I have, and how often, not so much that I'm thinking non-virtuously, I'm not thinking at all. The neutral states of mind that I have that are bringing absolutely nothing but maybe a little space out is a huge part of my day. You know, maybe it was lifetimes in the animal realms, a cat sleeping on a sunny window, I don't know. But there's a lot of mental activity that is not conducive to anything. And look at what I got. You know, so sometimes I'm just stunned at how much effort and what kind of circumstances and what kind of determination one has to have the kind of minds like His Holiness and Venerable and Geshe Silver, whoever these people and beings are, you know. But it's quite an eye-opener to see how, even with the best of circumstances, the mind, samsaric mind is a samsaric mind, and just, it's a lot to work on. So, but it's changed a lot since I've been here.
Definitely.
It's you know, a whole lot better. I'm not, you know, the negativities are down, but I'm not going to shift all that neutral stuff into something that's going to really help.
Yeah.
But I also think not to underestimate the power of practice and what happens in the emergency moment. So if we really are familiarizing ourselves with knowing that we're going to die, knowing that we're going to die at the moment of death, I want to have a certain kind of mind. You have a second to get yourself there. And if you train to get yourself there, I'm certain you will go.
But I'm saying that my mind hasn't gotten to where I've trained it enough to be able to say that I've got some confidence. I think that's absolutely true. This mind has not done that yet. And that's the tragedy that I find sometimes when I sit here and be honest with myself, is I'm not there yet. And if the time of death is uncertain, what the hell am I doing? And so it's just a reality check for me that this is not an easy thing, even with this kind of environment, but I think it's absolutely possible. And why I'm not doing it, you know, that's the $6 million question.
It all depends on our motivation. Venerable is pointing out our motivation morning till evening. So when we are going into the garden and doing our work there, so checking our mind, what kind of motivation do I have here? The work can be neutral, but we can make it to a positive state of mind. Yeah. But there are possibilities how to plenty of.
What I'm saying, I'm feeling this little bit. Just hear what I'm saying.
Yes.
I don't need to, but you know.
Yeah.
Hear what I'm saying, that it's not.
When I'm sick, sometimes I can't make it to the hall. I still get up and sit on a cushion in my room. And my mind sometimes when I'm sick, if I have a toothache or a headache, can be like, and I can't focus. But I think, if I can't focus now, how am I going to focus at the moment of death? So it's really good training.
That is, yeah.
So just I struggle with my mind and don't get much of anywhere.
Very good. Yeah.
Question online.
Yeah.
What can you do at the moment of death when you have thoughts or feelings of regret?
Thoughts or feelings of regret. Applying the for opponent powers. You can pull very immediately.
Go to sleep every night until I have let go of any regret.
Yeah.
Purification and, so, because since we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you can train yourself if you do something that is not virtuous and you feel the pain of that, you can in your mind apply the opponent powers very quickly and do it right in that moment. And let it go, drop it right then. So it's like going through every moment with kind of this clear slate, I can die right now and I don't have a regret.
Yeah.
And if there's something chewing at me, then that's my practice. And that's my practice right there. So I can let go.
Yeah.
By training yourself each night when you go to sleep, by doing that, then death will just be another transition when you would do that. And I didn't realize this till recently, but when minerals told us when we go to sleep, you imagine that you put your head on the Buddha's lap. I read that by Rinpoche also, but there was a little more explanation. It was this thing of, it makes me think of what you're saying there, because it is a transition. And then you're like with holy beings. You're going to sleep with kind of like some sense of refuge in the Buddha. And so you're taking that into this transition. So as you work out the day, and purify, and, I don't know, from the time I was a kid, I had this thing of it. I don't like to let disagreements, I don't like to let the sun set on a disagreement. I try to work things out that day. I can't do it as much here, I would have to say, because it's a little harder. In the sense of, I have to get my mind more settled, and be able to work something out so I can come about it, some kind of skill. But still, I try to work with on my side. When I was younger in life, I would make an effort to work it out with the other person, and I have kind of a tendency to want to do that. But now I feel more it's important for me to work it out on my side more first.
Yeah.
And that's the training for these kind of things.
Yeah.
That's a compassion training. We have to figure out how to be kind to ourselves so that we can remove these things that are gnawing on us, that are chewing on us. That's really the first practice. Until I could figure out how to be kind to myself, I would go to sleep with a big bag of junk.
And that kind of fits in with what we were talking about today when we were talking about guilt, and all of the self-recrimination that is associated with, and you're right, we're retraining ourselves, have compassion for ourselves so we can have for others.
Yeah.
Someone here has written regarding Venerable Senke's comment, thought itself, I've found, is an incredible antidote. Thinking about how incredible an environment I have to practice in, and how much others have contributed to my being able to practice, motivates me to pay attention and to put effort into my practice, even when it's hard.
I have an easy time when it's hard. I have a hard time when it's
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thank you for participating and making this review possible. Yeah.